honor of introing and also interviewing the man, the myth, the legend, the face of CrossFit Boynton Beach and Black Sheep Training. This is Caitlin, Coach Caitlin with Black Sheep Training, and Alex with Black Sheep Training.
Hello.
Alex hates talking about himself, but I am making him talk about himself because a lot of our members probably don't know much about Alex and his past, how he got to getting into CrossFit, how he got into owning CrossFit Boynton Beach, and all about Black Sheep Training, how the idea came to life. So kind of wanted to sit down and give him the floor to tell his story. So we're just going to take it through his personal life and all the way through. So Alex, thanks for joining me and doing this.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself athletically and lead us up into CrossFit.
Played hockey, played football, wrestled, middle school, elementary school, high school, and then my sophomore, junior, senior season, kind of like sank my teeth into wrestling quite a bit, and then that led me to fighting. That was just kind of like the most obvious transition from wrestling into something else. I didn't really have the scholastic record in the classroom to wrestle in college, so fighting was kind of the next thing.
Okay. Tell us some of your things in wrestling and accolades. Did you have any personal accolades?
Yeah, I went to states twice. My senior season finished third in the state.
Awesome.
Yeah, 145.
Cool. So you were in wrestling and went into fighting. So tell us more about fighting. Was it Muay Thai? I always say it wrong. What boxing? What was it?
Yeah. So long story short, it was probably like 2 years after high school, when high school wrestling was done, that I did not work out at all, and I started smoking cigarettes, and I was drinking a lot, and I was just kind of like living that lifestyle. And then it was actually UFC 100, and I'm pretty sure that the date was probably somewhere in the 2010 time, that I was like super drunk, chain smoking Newports with my buddies at some bar watching UFC 100, and then it just like the wrestling bug like bit me again, and I realized that I wanted to get active again because I was doing absolutely nothing. So I started exercising again, started working out, and then I actually got hooked up with some friends in Miami where we started to do some like just messing around backyard bare knuckle stuff, and then that led into MMA. Okay. So it was a guy that I met in a city called Perrine that introduced me to my first coach, my first and last coach. We separated for a little bit there, but it was a guy named Mark Sinopoli was my coach, and Mark was a world champion Muay Thai fighter. So when I got introduced to him, I enjoyed throwing punches. I enjoyed just like the bare knuckle concept, and I did a lot of wrestling. But I had no like real stand-up game. Had no knees, no elbows, no striking, just like throwing hands and wrestling. So Mark actually forced me to fight 10 Muay Thai fights before he allowed me to fight any MMA fights, because he knew what I wanted to do was MMA, and he knew that all I would do is just wrestle and just throw hands and like want to bang kind of thing. So he kind of forced me to take a step back and do Muay Thai, which I obviously thank him for that.
But, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
I did Muay Thai for about 1.5 years. He originally told me that I had to fight 10 Muay Thai fights before I could fight an MMA fight, and then it kind of, the two careers kind of overlapped. So I fought Muay Thai for about 1.5 years, and probably about 4 or 5 months in, we started picking up the MMA again also. Okay. So there was a period of time, probably about 1 year, where both of those things were happening, like just coexisting.
So then how did that career just end and kind of?
Yeah, so I was having a lot of fun with it, and then February of 2012, I got an invite to fight for a Muay Thai championship belt in New York State. And just fun fact, the reason why it was Muay Thai, not MMA, because I was doing both at the time. I was leaning a little bit more into MMA at the time. But in 2012, MMA was actually not legal in the state of New York, which is crazy to think of nowadays. Yeah. Got invited to fight a Muay Thai fight, title fight in New York, and about 2 months out, or about 2 months out, my opponent backed out. And I was 22 at the time. I was walking around at like 155, and I fought 145, and I thought I was just like the baddest motherfucker in the world. So when the promoter had contacted me that my opponent had had backed out, my, you know, a 22-year-old's initial response is, I don't care, find me something, I don't care who they are, I'll take the fight.
Well, weeks fighting.
Yeah. I didn't care. It could have been anybody in the world, in my opinion, and I wouldn't have cared. So a couple weeks went by. It wasn't looking very good. I stayed training, and then about 2 weeks out, he told me that he had finally found an opponent, but it was going to be a catch weight fight, which means that neither of us were going to be at the same weight. So again, I was walking around at about 155 at the time, fought 145, and this guy was a Golden Gloves champ from Philadelphia. This was going to be his like third or fourth Muay Thai fight, but he walked around at about 180 and was used to fighting 172. But I'm 22, and I thought I was the baddest motherfucker in the world, so I took the fight, went to New York, and, you know, long story short, at 145, I felt like I could sit there and literally go blow for blow with anybody, and if I'm hurt, then I know that you're hurt more. And then the extra 25 or 30 pounds kind of caught up with me, and went down twice in the first. After the first, the ringside doctor came over and kind of gave me a concussion protocol test, and my buddy who flew up with me to New York, guy named Marco, says to this day that he doesn't know what the doctor was looking at when he gave me that protocol, because I was gone. Really? But for whatever reason, the doctor said, you're good. We fought another 2 rounds, and then after that, it was just like, I don't know if it was like a CTE thing, but I was just like manically depressed for a really, really long period of time. And it was the first time in my life where I was like, I should probably start to think about my future a little bit. And I don't know if this is it, just because of just like I felt like chemically depressed. After that, you know what I mean? And then that was my last fight.
Wow. So then after that, what was next?
So if the fight was February of 2022, I came into CrossFit Boynton Beach in probably like November of 2011, because CrossFit had just started to kind of get some ground. I know there's going to be some people who are like, oh, I've been doing it since 2008. Yes, I'm not saying it started in 2011. Right. That's when it started to really gain some momentum. And I wanted to use CrossFit as a method to get stronger and get more powerful for fighting.
You wanted to potentially go back to fighting?
I started CrossFit in November of 2011 to prep for the fight in February of 2012.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay. So you're already kind of in.
Yeah. So I was so there was a period of time where I was training and I was doing CrossFit.
Gotcha.
I don't think I think the first thing I did was not walk into CrossFit Boynton Beach, but I was pulling CrossFit Boynton Beach's workouts off of their website, and I was going to the 24-hour fitness down the road, and I was doing them in like the functional fitness area of that. And then after about a month, I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll go in there. So I came into CrossFit Boynton Beach, and the goal was that the intention was that I was going to pay 1 month, because it was like whatever, 135, 145, whatever it was at the time. And I was 21 at the time, broke, just trying to fight. So I didn't really have that kind of money. So I scraped it together, paid for the 1 month. And the plan was that I got a spiral notebook, might still have it somewhere.
Probably do.
Yeah. I got a spiral notebook, and each day I wrote down what the workout was. And then my plan was that I was just going to recycle those. You know, if there was 31 days in the month, I was just going to 12 times a year, just recycle those workouts and just try to do better each time. So stopped coming to CrossFit Boynton Beach because that was always the plan. I wasn't going to keep coming. And then the owner at the time, Rob Labar, contacted me and was like, yo, you know, where'd you go? What's the deal? And I told him that I don't really have the money, and the plan was always that I was just going to go for a month. And then he was basically like, come in, we'll figure something out.
Okay, so what did you figure out?
So we ended
up. How did you stay?
So we ended up. I'm trying to remember what came first. I think that I was like assistant coaching kind of, and then he bought
CrossFit became an interest of you wanting to coach it?
Just to be here. I didn't really give a shit at the time. I didn't really care yet, but I would just pay for the membership.
Yep, just to.
Because I thought this whole thing was really cool.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like just like I had been doing some personal training prior to this, but it was at like YMCA style things. So like this style gym with like the cursing and the dropping the weights versus like what I was used to. It was like this new concept that was like, this is really cool. I need to be here.
Yeah.
So I was like doing some coaching kind of thing. And when I say coaching, it was more of like cheerleading. Like I wouldn't call myself a coach.
Okay.
And then on top of that, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was teaching a Muay Thai class.
Okay.
So we had gotten like 4 or 5 bags that every Tuesday or Thursday night, we'd get up on ladders, we'd hang them up on the rafters, and we would do an hour-long striking class, Tuesdays and Thursdays, which every time we think back to this, it's crazy to think that we used to do that, because like how busy the gym is right now, it would just never fly, ever.
Never work.
Every Tuesday and Thursday, what do you mean? So that's kind of how it started, and then I kind of just worked through my membership like that.
Okay. Yeah. And then so what all of a sudden just sparked the interest?
Yeah.
In wanting to stay and coach?
So it was really Rob and.
Because did you have another career path at this time too?
I didn't. I was already in fitness. I was managing a boxing gym down the street. I was managing a boxing gym down the street, and I was doing personal training at a YMCA also. Okay. So I kind of knew that fitness was going to be like my thing. Okay. I had already gone to Kaiser, so I knew that fitness was going to be what I wanted to do.
What did you study?
Sports medicine and exercise science. So I already knew that fitness was going to be what I wanted to do. Okay. So Rob ended up helping me pay for my level 1. So it was just kind of like one thing led to another as far as like my involvement here. Went from an assistant coach and coaching kickboxing classes to I got my level 1. Now I'm doing like half assistant coaching with him and half coaching. And then, obviously over the years that just continued to evolve until like Kristen actually uses the same email address that crossboynbeach@gmail.com. Everyone's probably seen it before, but that email address was around like back in the day. So there's Google Sheets attached to that email address from back in the day. So Kristen somehow came across like an old timesheet, and I think like in like 2013, I was working like coaching like 120 hours a month. Yeah, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like 4 hours, and I know that like most people are like, listen to this asshole complaining about working 40 hours a week. I get it, but it was like coaching floor hours. It was a lot of hours for sure. Yeah. And then it was actually so I started coaching here, and then I kind of came across Glenn Penlay, who passed away about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, who was a pretty high level weightlifting coach at Cal Strength at the time. And then at that same time, I came across Louis Simmons. Yeah. And it was kind of those two guys where I was like, I saw the science behind it, and like Glenn Penlay was like super elegant with the way he spoke about Olympic weightlifting and the way he spoke about just biomechanics of the body, and it was just super interesting how like this thing that if you look at it, you don't understand, talking about like snatch and clean and jerk. Right. If you look at it, it just looks like madness ensues. Yeah. And Glenn Penlay, it just had an elegant way of just breaking things down. And then Louis Simmons from Westside also had a very cool kind of thing where it was just like, here's all these like huge bodybuilders that are all just like the strongest fucking dudes in the world, and they all just look like a bunch of tatted up felon meatheads. Yeah. But then here's Louis Simmons, who also looks like a tatted up meathead felon, but was like, you sit him down and you're like, what the fuck is this man talking about? Yeah. And it was that like the sweet science of it that started to get me away from like loving fighting as much. Okay. I think that one of the big things also was like with CrossFit and with strength and conditioning in general, you can monitor your progress, right? Like if Monday I power cleaned 225 and then next Monday I power cleaned 240, something happened here. Something clearly happened, and I know that for a fact. Yep. Where with fighting, it's literally dictated upon your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And
like you could be the best, and we talk about this all the time about like external goals and internal goals, but like I might be the best fighter I've ever been, but like that dude might literally be the baddest dude in the world, and I might lose my first fight.
Right.
Does that mean that I'm the worst fighter? That if I was 13-0 until that point, was that my worst fight ever? No, it might have been my best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there wasn't a whole lot of like internal markers
to show progress.
That strength and conditioning, and specifically CrossFit, like kind of allowed for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I kind of just like fell in love with just like the science of the numbers.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then I mean, definitely we all are on that with goals and really wanting to see your progress and see it on paper. And that's the one thing I think that a lot of people love about CrossFit or sports in general is being able to see your progress. And also
not just on game day. Yeah.
So now speaking of that, and you're coaching, and now you're obviously starting to get athletically into CrossFit, and you're wanting to compete in CrossFit.
Yeah.
So now tell us a little bit more of your history and past with CrossFit. As you know, you went to regionals on a few teams.
Yeah.
What years did you go, and kind of give us a little bit background on that.
Yeah.
How you got into competing.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I started doing CrossFit, I mean, as soon as I made the decision that CrossFit was going to be what I kind of like pursued, not just from a careers perspective, but just from an athletic perspective also, like competing was obviously the first thing that was on my mind. My first competition that I ever did was something called Beast Mode Battles that they don't really do anymore. But it was one of those like power hour things.
As an individual?
As an individual.
Wow.
And like I had, because I had been wrestling my entire life, I had been fighting my entire life. So like everything is just very forward with wrestlers and fighters. So I had the worst shoulder mobility. Like I could not overhead squat for probably the first 2 years I did CrossFit.
Wow.
So let that be motivation.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And
you
I like,
guys hear it from me too.
And I hammered it down, and I worked on things. And this was before we knew a lot either. I just really just overhead squatted really light and just kind of built, but that's beside the point. So yeah, I just did my first competition probably about like 7 or 8 months into CrossFit.
Okay.
And then my first regionals was 2013 on a team. And then
was that the 6-person one?
That was, yeah. So 6-person teams were that's another 6-person team, but it's not that one. I think 2016 was the last year they did 6-person teams. So I went to regionals in 13, 15, 16, and 17.
Okay.
All on teams, super fun, and 18. But that was like the catastrophe that took place that we won't talk about.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure 18 was the first year that they did the 4-person teams.
Okay.
But yeah, and then just like the rest is history. And
so then when you started competing, how did the transition into like I want to be like a business owner? Because has that always been something that you wanted to?
No,
Did you always wanted to be a business owner?
Definitely not. And I actually never really even thought that it was gonna happen. I never thought that it was a thing. And I remember I was actually on the way to a family vacation, and it was either early 17 or late 2016, and we were on our way to a family vacation, and the guy that owned it at that time sent me a awkwardly worded text message, which this is one of the main reasons why, and if you know me, I don't appreciate text messages like, hey, I need to talk to you.
Oh yeah, no, that's the worst.
I do not appreciate text messages like that. Hey, I have to tell you something.
Yes,
like,
that's an immediate phone call.
You are getting a phone call. Yeah. So that happened
oh, God.
with my boss
that's
at
like
the
a
time.
pit stomach feeling.
With my boss at the time, and then he basically said that we're preparing to sell.
Okay.
I'll give you the first option, because I did have like a very small stake in the company. I think I had like 5% ownership.
Okay.
Just like a sweat equity kind of thing at that time.
Being a head coach.
Yeah.
In it.
So he kind of mentioned
first right of refusal to if this
right.
you were interested
Yeah.
in.
So he mentioned that he had this like amazing opportunity that had just opened up, and that they would be moving out west. And then just one thing led to another, and then I had to get kind of weird about how I got the money, and then that's where Joe kind of came in also.
Okay.
So that's when Joe and I obviously partnered up.
Okay.
So I scraped up like literally every cent that I had possible and probably a little bit beyond that.
Yeah.
And then I was still like X amount of dollars short.
Right.
So that's when Joe and I kind of partnered up.
But like, what was that feeling when he called you and you're like, oh my gosh,
well,
like I could own this? Like,
it didn't even cross my mind. Like the first thought was I'm going to be unemployed.
Okay.
Because the first thought was he's not going to find somebody. Like the first thought was not I'm that person.
Okay.
Because I just didn't see myself as that person at that time.
Now look at you.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy how life has just kind of laid itself out for you and been able to now take over CrossFit Boynton Beach. And what year was that when you took over?
I want to say it was 2017.
Okay.
I want to say it was 2017.
So now that you've taken over CrossFit Boynton Beach, you've had a wonderful career in CrossFit as well as a regionals athlete and going into that aspect. And then obviously CrossFit Boynton Beach started smaller.
Yeah.
And if most people don't know, this place has grown into 8,000 square feet. I don't know what you started at, but
yeah.
It was not 8,000
It was not 8,000 square feet for sure.
And also has grown it to, I think you said you started it with 160 members.
Something
when you
like
took
that,
over,
yeah.
And has now grown it to almost 400 members. So over the years, you've definitely done a great job with bringing in members and growing this place. And so what do you think has been the most important thing of building this community and being able to grow it to this magnitude over the past few years?
I mean, obviously we can't discredit, sometimes things just kind of happen. And I think that is some of it also, but we had a couple gyms around us go out of business, that kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But we just kind of had a vision on the goal of creating a fitness concept. Fitness concept is the wrong word because our fitness concept is CrossFit, but a fitness lifestyle that was unlike any other. And that was kind of what we wanted to do to kind of differentiate ourselves. And I think that is really what took us to the next level. Instead of just being this like cookie cutter style CrossFit, where when CrossFit first started, CrossFit was not cookie cutter. CrossFit was against the grain, because CrossFit was nitty and gritty, and it was new enough and different enough that if you just were a CrossFit, you were anti-culture enough that it was cool. And then when CrossFit started to gain popularity, nobody wants to be a part of the thing that everybody's a part of.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the CrossFits that's just stayed cookie cutter, I think you kind of saw them get left in the dust.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that started to create their own, I call it counterculture, their own counterculture or anti-culture, if you will, I think we're the ones that kind of rose up, and that's kind of what we try to do.
Gotcha. So how would you describe your culture here?
I would say, not to use the same word that we just did, but like kind of dirty. You know what I mean? Like I like for people to think that we enjoy working out and we enjoy being fit, but we also enjoy doing a lot of stuff outside the gym. Mm-hmm. I like shooting guns. I like building stuff. I like doing dangerous things. I like eating pizza, and I like drinking whiskey. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a lot of subgroups within, especially South Florida, that have kind of been deterred from the fitness community, because when they think of fitness, they think of like, oh, you're gonna weigh out your chicken breast, and you're gonna do this, and you're gonna go run for 5 miles a day. And I think that the fitness community has done communities outside of fitness a lot of injustice by the way that they've portrayed themselves. And our goal is to kind of show people that like we are probably more like you than we are like them, like that, like typical. We call it white collar, blue collar. We're like more like you than we are the white collar fitness community person. Yeah,
no, for sure, absolutely. And also, when you go to competitions, you bring this entourage. No, I don't want to say entourage. You bring this
Crew.
Huge crew of
Yeah.
people wearing black, saying gang.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is intimidated by the crew that comes.
As they should be.
As they definitely should be. But it's something that people want to be a part of because they feel the energy, they feel the passion, they feel, you know, the competitiveness from the outside, which is obviously coming from leadership, bringing it down.
Yeah, and one of our, just to kind of get on that too, one of our goals, kind of like behind the scenes goals, is like, we want our culture from the outside to look like it's not approachable.
Right.
But then as soon as you build up the courage to walk in, you're like, oh my God, this is great. This is amazing. I love this place. This place has changed my life.
The one thing I love to say about this place, I've said it to you multiple times, is intimidating on the outside, but overly warm and welcoming on the inside. A lot of people don't realize that until they do step foot through these doors, how welcoming. And then a lot of people come, and that's why you are where you are, and they never want to leave, and they become a part of the family. And definitely everyone thinks it's a cult. It's really not. It's a huge family. And everyone knows that once they step through the doors. So thank you for sharing all of your past and your backstory. So along with that's CrossFit Boynton Beach in person, you've also built on a remote aspect of CrossFit Boynton Beach called Black Sheep Training, and also in-person training. This is more of your competitive side. How did Black Sheep Training come to fruition?
It started off as Black Sheep Athletics, and it was
by you. Did you come
by
up with
me?
That?
Yeah. So originally the goal was, well, the actual original goal was I was writing programming for a couple, competitive, quasi-competitive, remote CrossFit athletes that were not in Boynton Beach, and I figured it would be cool to have like a logo and like a shirt that they could rock, because I was always big in the MMA community. Shirts are a big thing. You know what I mean? I think in a lot of and just like being able to represent what it is that is building you, or what it is that you represent with a shirt, is cool. So it started off with that. So I came up with this with the sheep logo. So that's how that was. It was the sheep logo, and the same way the CrossFit Boynton Beach logo says CrossFit Boynton Beach. Actually, no, it said Black Sheep Athletics, and then in the circle it said different, smarter, better, where it says CrossFit Boynton Beach now. So that was the original Black Sheep Athletics logo. So it started off with that, and then for obvious reasons created the LLC for tax purposes, because I started doing some like remote coaching, that kind of thing. And then it kind of just snowballed into what it is today with Black Sheep Training. And
so why'd you name it Black Sheep Training?
For the exact reason that what, dude? I know you touched me.
We have Kane here with us.
Yeah, Kane's down here.
His son.
Hold on one second, dude.
So obviously, Black Sheep Training came to life. So why did you name it Black Sheep Training?
We did get the Black Sheep Athletics thing, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay. All right. So it started off obviously with Black Sheep Athletics, like I said, and it was for kind of the same reason that we talked about how CrossFit Boynton Beach kind of like got the culture that it did over the last couple of years, where I wanted to do things a little bit different as far as training for CrossFit goes. And in 2000, I think this was probably 2013, that I created Black Sheep Athletics. I had just finished my OPT CCP, and I was introduced to this new style of program design for CrossFit athletes to get better at CrossFit, and really nobody was really doing it right now. At that time, everybody was just doing CrossFit. So the fact that I was going to use those principles to try to get people better at CrossFit and better at their respective sports, because I was working with some MMA guys also. That was kind of like against the grain, different. And again, the original logo was different, smarter, better, and it was for that reason. So it was kind of for different reasons that Black Sheep Athletics was named Black Sheep versus like the Black Sheep culture that we have now. Kind of the same, you know what I mean? Like I do like to think that we train smarter and better than everybody else. But it's definitely talking a lot more about our culture also, where when Black Sheep Athletics was was originated, it was more just about the training methodology and less about the culture, because there really was no culture yet.
Okay, yeah, because
you know
it's
what I mean?
still so
Yeah,
new,
yeah.
and now you have been able to establish that
Yeah, and
culture.
I didn't think that culture was ever going to be a thing.
Oh, why?
Because like I didn't think that I was going to really be a business owner, and like and I was also 23, so I didn't know a lot of things were going to be a thing.
You're just like, oh, here it is.
Yeah. And I didn't think I realized the importance of culture in things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you now see, you probably appreciate culture and how it brings
probably
people more than
most
anything.
Things. Yeah.
And so with that, you know, as you took over Black Sheep Training, obviously you coach a lot of individuals. You are now coaching some high-level athletes with like Rose Scott.
Present company included.
Rose Scott just now, hopefully, like not unofficially, but qualifying for semis. She qualified last year. So what would you say your coaching style is and overall in general?
So I had a feeling you were going to ask this, so I'll answer that referring back to the conversation that you and I had, where we talked about some of your coaches and like what coaching style some of your coaches had that resonated with you. So that guy that I mentioned earlier, Mark Stinopoli, he was a very important person to me, and he was a fucking dick. He was a dick, but he was really, really hard to please. But when you got through to him, it like resonated so well.
Yeah.
And like there was just no, calling him a dick is not the right word, obviously. Like you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but,
he
like,
was a hard ass.
He was a hard ass, and like he could have probably said things more strategically.
Of course.
Like hey, instead of allowing your right hand to drop when you throw that kick, keep it up.
Yeah.
And he would say something like, "You're gonna get knocked the fuck out if you do that again."
Yep.
So, you know what I mean? So I think that
Stop being a lazy piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like
so I think that like because that resonated so well with me, I think that just naturally I've kind of like gotten into that coaching style where like I think I'm a little bit more blunt than a lot of people might be used to. But I think that, and I'd like to think that you're good, dude. You're good. I'd like to think that my transparency and my honesty makes getting coached by me enjoyable.
Yeah, no,
like
for sure.
I think that you kind of know what you're gonna get with me.
Yeah, which is awesome. And as an athlete, I know obviously Alex coaches me, and that's something that you definitely really respect from you, because you want honesty and you want to know that you're getting complete truth out of you, and not just like beating around the bush. Like you know for a fact how Alex is feeling. Alex is telling you what he thinks about your performance.
And if I didn't say it, it probably says it on my forehead.
Yes. If you haven't noticed, he wears his emotions on his sleeve. So yes, no, definitely. I know I can speak for everyone here at Black Sheep Training that they appreciate your honesty. He is a little tougher on some other people.
Yeah.
And but definitely really appreciate that out of you. And so what is your favorite part about coaching? Like, do you like being all in, or is it the programming side? Is it in the room?
Program design is absolutely 100% my favorite.
And if you guys don't know anything about Alex probably is one of the smartest people I've ever sat and had a conversation with when it comes to program design. He is someone, and I'll get to this later, but Alex has a saying that is everything worth doing is worth overdoing.
Yeah.
And he also has a saying that if you're going to do something, do it with everything and be the absolute best in what you're doing. And that is Alex. Alex is the absolute best. He completely engulfs himself in what he is doing and what he is passionate about. And you can tell his passion through his program design, because he really individualizes it for each athlete that he takes on, and definitely we all appreciate that out of you. He gets creative.
How much longer are you gonna go?
I know this is awkward, but definitely want everyone to know that it's not just putting numbers on a paper.
Yeah.
There's absolute thought and really definitely thinking about each person behind your program. So. How to put that plug in there for you,
Appreciate
just
that.
so you know.
Appreciate it.
But So why? What about program design that gets you?
I think that it's just the same thing that made me fall in love with CrossFit in 2012 when I found Louis Simmons and I found Glenn Penlay. Just like the art of design and the art of learning the nuances of not just exercise physiology but athletes and how to resonate with them, how to manipulate them into performing better. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And just the creativity of it. There's not many things. I'm very, very, very fortunate that, one, I've found something that I love to do, and two, it allows me to be like creative beyond any level that I've ever imagined that I'd be able to be creative, where I can, literally wake up in the morning and create, training plans and training programs that there's no walls there. I can just, as far as the imagination can go, you can create. You know what I mean? So it's just fun.
Endless opportunity, yeah. So what, along with that, your program design and stuff, what are some of the education milestones that you have behind that you took to be able to get to your knowledge and
I went to Kaiser University for sports medicine and exercise science, like we talked about, and then I've done the OPEX. Originally, at the time, it was called OPT, but I've done OPT, CCP, level 1 and level 2. And then I've kind of done some like random stuff here and there. I've done a Westside Barbell strength course before. I've done an Alico strength course. But that's really one of the great things about like the day and age that we live in, is if you are interested in something, you can kind of just go find out about it. And it was a really good time in my life when I kind of fell in love with this. I was like, 21 to 25. I was living alone. I wasn't really drinking much anymore. I wasn't really going out much anymore. So like the majority of my free time was spent just like digging and looking and researching. And sometimes it was researching people who've already done the research, like a Louis Simmons type. And sometimes it was actually going into like the archives of strength journals. So I've been very fortunate that I've luckily early on, I think that I asked the right questions to myself, and I was able to find answers that, hold on, dude.
We're almost there.
That I was able to find answers to questions that I don't think I would have known existed if I just went like the 100% scholastic route.
Yeah, okay. So you did a lot of self-educating as well.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely shows. So do you have anything else you want to add about Black Sheep training, or anything that you want people to know about it?
I think that's about it. I will make a prediction.
What's that?
My prediction is that Ro is going to finish in 7th at Syndicate, or not. It's not called Syndicate anymore, but at our semifinal, and she will go to the games this year.
She will go to the games. So that would be huge.
That'll be our first.
But before we're done, I have some fun questions that we want to just ask you to get a little bit more personal. So why so many tattoos?
As simple of a question that is, I don't know the answer to it. Here's the answer. Anything we're doing is worth what we're doing.
I literally have that next to my notes.
That is literally it.
I have it next to my notes. Oh God, too. So what was your first tattoo?
My first tattoo was, I don't really remember.
How old were you?
I was 18. I waited till I was 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I waited till I was 18.
That's really good for you.
Yeah.
Unlike you.
No.
And then what is your favorite tattoo?
My favorite tattoo? These are hard questions. I've never thought about this before. I'd say the "Don't be a bitch" on my knuckles.
Why?
Because it says "Don't be a bitch" on my knuckles.
Oh gosh. And then do you have any tattoo that means the most to you?
I have a tattoo for my daughter. I have one for Kane on my hand. And I don't wear a wedding ring. I have my wedding finger tattooed. So probably those three.
Those three?
Yeah.
And then here are just some like funny little ones that people typed in on Instagram.
Okay.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
It is indeed a sandwich.
Why?
Because it has horizontal or vertical. Because we used to say that sandwiches could only have vertical coverage. But a submarine, like a sub,
yeah.
sometimes has horizontal coverage.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if it has coverage either horizontally on both sides or vertically on both sides, it is going to be considered a sandwich, but it needs both sides covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it. A hot dog is a sandwich.
Yes.
So, also, why won't you watch the last episode of The Office?
I don't want it to end. Who asked that?
Who do you think?
Who?
Isabella.
Oh.
So he doesn't want it to end.
I don't want it to end. I actually just restarted The Office like 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh. How many times is that?
Oh.
A million.
Beyond, yeah.
Oh gosh. Anyways, so out of fishing or hunting, what is your favorite one to do?
I'd say fishing, just because of where we live. It's easier to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then one last thing. How do you want to be remembered?
Oh man. As a leader.
As a leader.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alex.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. It's been fun.